Bang ding ding, trademark. He come out 6'7" tall. Bang ding ding, one is star. Bang dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding. It is a perfect day.
Woke up to the sound of the garbage truck again. Upstairs neighbor's toilet's leaking on my head. And cars broke down, I missed the bus, there runs a 10. I had a feeling this was a day to stay in bed. I finally left my pad right on the jumbo's cloud roof. A police officer pulled out his gun and said, I said, sir, you got the wrong guy. I guess it's just the perfect day. It's just the perfect day. Na, 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 na,
Hey everybody, welcome back to Eggs. This week we have very special guest, Larry Ludwig. Larry is a longtime entrepreneur and marketer who's helped some of the largest companies in the world achieve new levels of success. Additionally, Larry has owned and sold his own business and is now pursuing his passion of helping other business owners leverage technology and digital marketing to find success of their own. We're really excited for the conversation, so join me in welcoming our guest, Larry Ludwig.
Hey, Larry.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah, not a problem.
Of course,
Thank you.
thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for making the time for us. Really appreciate it.
So before we got into recording the show, we just had a little weather talk. So for anybody who's watching the live stream here, you'll notice that each of the three of us are in different locations today. Mike is stranded in the Pacific Northwest up in Anacortes, Washington, in feet of snow.
Yeah, literally, there's at least 1.5 feet on top of the car right now.
Yeah, he just texted me a picture that was absolutely ridiculous. I'm down in Salt Lake City, where we're usually from. I'm the one stable person, the rock around here. So, and then our guest Larry is out in Long Island. So welcome everybody. We're doing a cross country podcast today. Pretty nice.
Yeah, it's nice that the tech's out there to be able to do something like this. A few years ago, you just call it off and reschedule.
Well, even still, it doesn't always work to its plans. I mean, obviously the biggest issue I've had is through Skype or other means like Zoom, which we're using here. It's just things get cut off every so often.
Yeah,
it's true. Yeah, you got to make sure that you're talking quick and you get out those questions because you never know when the technology gods are going to frown on you.
Yeah,
knock on wood. Don't jinx us here, Ryan.
That's right. So cool. Well, so Larry, why don't you talk a little bit about your past? Like, let's talk about how you got to where you're headed. It seems like from the information I've got on you that maybe you started a career in marketing and advertising. Is that where school took you, or what does your career path look like?
So I went to school in the South. I went to Clemson University, graduated there in '93. And actually, while in '93, when I graduated, I saw really the beginnings of the web. I mean, we're literally just the beginnings of the internet and the web. I mean, internet had been around prior to that. The web really transformed it to be, instead of really being technical and needing, things like Unet to communicate back and forth, you use a standard web browser. It just revolutionized the whole way people were communicating online. And I just knew that was the future of the internet. I mean, even back then, my background being computer science, what was really in the rage back then was client server, and the web and server technology that we have now is pretty much just the evolution of that technology. So I knew that really the future was not only going to be ways to market it and promote your business, but also do transactions online. And once I graduated college, I tried to find some business that would do web development online. I couldn't really find anything, of course. Again, this is being early '94. And I just started doing stuff on my own with the hopes of maybe one day finding a business that would understand this is the future. And so in '95, I applied for a company called Poppy Tyson in New York City. And they were really one of the bleeding edge ad agencies that worked with some of the biggest Fortune 500 companies creating their first versions of the website, including actually working with Netscape at the time.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I didn't work with them, but the West Coast division of Poppy Tyson did. The White House. I mean, I personally worked with some of the first versions of like Chase Bank at the time. Wow. So it was really just starting off with the very basics of creating a non-transactional more of an online brochure, if you will, but that was the future of the internet. And I knew that, eventually we're going to get to that point of doing more transactions online.
Yeah, no, it's so funny because like, I mean, I think both Mike and I are maybe just a little bit younger than you, but like both of us came up sort of in that transitionary period where the internet was accessible to a person at home. Like all of a sudden, I mean, of course we had dial up and all that stuff. So it's only semi-accessible, but nonetheless, like if you wanted to be on the web, you had to build it. And so there wasn't these, these fancy web builders and what you see, what you get type editors that you've got nowadays. And so when we were kids, if you wanted to learn, or be able to exist on the internet, you had to learn HTML, you had to learn to do some coding, so both Mike and I are from that sort of transitionary era where we, are just sort of burgeoning the internet. So I have to imagine things were infinitely more difficult when you began working on this stuff.
Oh yeah. I mean, again, I saw the whole advantage coming from my background being computer science and also as a database administrator prior to doing stuff online. I knew that you really need to take a database and somehow link it up to a website.
That's the hardest part for me is like I went connecting the database and actually doing the SQL queries and everything. That's where I cut off. I can do the design, but tying the database in, I'm no good.
Well, I mean, ironically, from a skill set, usually there's a division of labor. From the early days, you really had designers creating the front end, and a programmer would really do the back end. There's really very rare, from my experience at least, that people had experience in both ends or did very well in both ends. So I had the more back end experience and worked with designers to create that visual front end. Again, like you said, back then there was no WordPress that you just instantly can create a blog or a website. You literally had to create stuff from scratch, and we were doing just that. It was really the Stone Age in terms of technology. I mean, we take stuff so for granted nowadays, but back then it was just impossible to really, or not impossible, very difficult to build, say, a dynamic website that's database driven. Yeah. And nowadays we do it in WordPress in 10 minutes, we're up and running.
Yeah, it's crazy how far it's come. Instead of like creating all the database fields and then tying into the front end and doing the queries and all that, you can just hit a button and it's installed. And hey, here's a plugin for WordPress that does exactly what you need in minimal at work, and it's ready to go.
Which is great though. I mean, from a business owner standpoint, for an entrepreneur, there's no excuse to do stuff online. It's so easy that you can do things. Again, back when I first started, doing personalization or doing, tracking the user through a site was just not possible. It was very difficult. There was books that discuss this stuff, this whole one-on-one communication medium, but it was just not really feasible at the time because of the technology just wasn't there yet. Where nowadays we can do things like in WordPress very easily.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I mean, the way technology keeps moving, I mean, God, you can barely keep up with it now. So after a few years at Poppy Tyson, you moved on to Commerce One, which is kind of a successful startup in '98. It sounds like. Can you talk a little bit about that experience and what that was like? It sounds like web technology had evolved a little bit. Now you were starting to do integrations with B2B solutions for companies. So there's a little bit of I guess, the next step, or the future beginning to arrive.
Yeah, I mean, prior stuff was more C2B, where B2B, Commerce One, or I called it eventually Commerce None, in the sense of they eventually went bankrupt, in retrospect in 2001. But it was an interesting ride where I was, I think, the 60th employee or something like that. They were based in the Valley. And they were just not, I mean, it was interesting as far as the whole startup. I never really worked for a startup. There was a lot of people from Sybase and Netscape that worked at this company. And it was interesting from just the growth of the business, how quickly it grew, and the valuations. Again, this is during the dot-com bubble. And you had people going, well, it's not about, income, it's about eyeballs. Or in this case, it was about, how much we did from the B2B transactions through this system. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, I was knowing, well, we only did $30,000 in transactions so far, but yet we were evaluated at like $7 billion or something.
Isn't that like the WeWork model?
That's exactly, well, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. It's also often said, but you're right. There is that valuation aspect where Commerce One, I left after they went public, but 4 or 5 months after I left, they went public. And again, the stock just went through the roof. And again, it was just crazy valuations at the time. And I guess from my end, I was really concerned, like, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't add up. This doesn't sound rational at the time. And I had friends that on paper were worth literally millions. And they had these, phantom stock gains that they owned or owed to the IRS. In their cases, wound up losing their shirts because in the end, the company went, in retrospect, the company went bankrupt about only 3 years later after they went public. but yet at one point it was worth, I think, 20 billion or something like that.
So were they
Crazy.
the predecessor to like PayPal, or what was the platform used for? I don't recognize the name and hadn't dealt with them before. So what were you working on?
It was working. I was actually helping integrate the products into the various companies that I worked with. But in terms of the product itself and what Commerce One did, it was more, instead of, at the time the rage was Amazon and, the whole C2B, where the whole goal for this was, let's automate procurement behind the scenes for, let's say, staples or, staplers or chairs or something, office supplies. So instead of having to go to, 10 different vendors, you do it all through a website. So therefore the purchase managers within these companies can buy these products and services and not have to go to 10 different websites. So it's all to be like through an intranet. And it was allowing them to make it easier for not only people to have all these products through one website, but allow it to purchase very, on demand or when they needed it, as opposed to before it was much more manual, purchase order. You had to go through manually and purchase these services. And it just was time consuming and a lot of red tape and a lot of paperwork. The goal for Commerce One was to try to eliminate all those steps and automate it and put it online. So it was revolutionary in that sense, but it was also a product that was very expensive to implement and it took many months, or if not years in some cases, to implement. And that was really the downfall of the company. When the recession hit in 2001, it really slowed it down to where there were no new sales, and it eventually collapsed because there was just no one buying the product. And from one point, again, from only a year and a half, 2 years prior, they were really doing well, as far as income is concerned, but they spent, like going out of style.
That's
So they
crazy.
eventually went bankrupt, within a year and a half.
So
I know that's nuts.
How long were you there, and what did you do post bankruptcy? Was that pretty much the end for you, or did you leave before that?
I left before. Well, I left before they went public. So I rode the wave, and actually I had the advantage of I had stock options that were already vested because I left the company, and I could sell them anytime I wanted. Where people working at Commerce One at the time, this is typical of a lot of startups. They have vesting periods and times you can decide to exit. And if you're an employee, you're more limited usually. So what happened was my friends of mine would have stock options that were not fully vested, but yet, again, in the end, they wound up being worthless.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I left at the right time and was approached by a few people that were clients of mine through another business, a little side hustle I had for hosting in 1999. So I decided to go off and do that full time instead.
So did you set up your own server and host their own stuff and run it? I mean, like 99, that's a long time ago to be able to self-host.
Yeah, you actually literally would. I document this on my site on LarryLudwig.com. So it literally created you had to create your own servers. In this case, there was no rack mounted servers. It was literally a tower desktop.
Yeah.
We put it into a data center, and we were hosting sites on this one server. If it went down, the whole business went down. Much different than nowadays with cloud hosting and all that stuff going on. It was much, much more difficult. You had to build it yourself.
So you went and did that after this. Was the revenue there to support you, or did you? With the stocks and everything, I'm sure you were probably fine. But going and starting your own server and hosting account, that can't be cheap. And then developing clients and building from there. Was that your full-time gig or just a side hustle?
It was a side hustle at the time, but again, I had fellow clients that weren't really interested in, they approached me and wanting to do it full-time. So they helped fund some of the operations, where also the business itself did generate some revenue, nowhere near the revenue at the time to really afford me full-time. But I had their backing to some degree, helped me grow the business. So ironically, though, that was my first stint to really going full-time to owning my own business.
Sure.
And the ironic thing is, being at the time I was single, didn't really have any other debt. I was nervous to really do it, ironically, where nowadays I laugh at myself thinking like how stupid I was. I didn't have any dependents. I didn't have, a wife. I didn't have children, where
in retrospect, that was the easiest time to start.
It was the easiest time to do it. But needless to say, so I created that in 99 with the two other partners and did that for a few years with those partners. It just wasn't really a good fit because they had other existing businesses that did very well, but just didn't understand web hosting, web development. So I decided to exit and brought on another partner during that same period. So that was until 2004, 2005, where he also decided to exit. And then from 2005, to eventually last year when or this year actually, 2019, I shut down my web hosting finally after 15 plus 20 years almost.
Was that called Empowering Media? Is that the company that?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Empowering Media was the original company name. And I created under that in 2009, another business because I was so frustrated with web hosting, web development. I guess the biggest issue I have with web hosting, especially, it's such a commodity and it's such a difficult business to be in. I just was getting frustrated with working with various clients and not respecting the work I was doing. It was not just me, but I had other people as well.
Sure.
But it was just not really paying. It was paying the bills, and I grew the business dramatically after the second partner left the business. But I was just not happy. I was seeing others growing their businesses and helping them grow those businesses, but yet not really seeing any huge income growth on my side of the business.
Right.
So I decided, why not? Again, this is 2009. Create a business that was based on affiliate marketing, and I created a site called Investor Junkie, and grew that from 0 to 300,000 unique visitors a month in 2018.
All based on the investment platform, on just it. I mean, going off the name, that's what it kind of reads to me. What was your clientele that you're going for Investor Junkie?
Well, with Investor Junkie, I knew it was really with some experience with my web hosting, I knew affiliate marketing was the way to really monetize it because I had domain registration, SSL certificates. I was able to use those and do it through affiliate marketing. I also saw other businesses that were sold in 2009, 2010. One of them being Bankaholic was sold for $12 million in 2008, I want to say. And this was literally a one-man show. And I'm like, if this guy could grow this business and sell it for that amount of money, I knew there's definitely potential for affiliate marketing. So from that, I knew affiliate marketing was the way to go. And I did that, meaning you would basically have reviews of various products and services and monetize as instead of traditional ad banners. So I didn't actually have any courses or anything else on this website. It was all through affiliate marketing.
That's crazy.
Well, so maybe let's take a half a step back and just sort of explain what affiliate marketing is to people who may not be aware. We're throwing it around pretty casually, but I think for some people, they may not be clear on what that means.
Sure.
Raise his hand right here.
Well, affiliate marketing, the simplest way to think of it is you're selling someone else's product or service, and you get commission only if the transaction happens, whatever that transaction is defined as. Meaning it could be as simple as an email address to actually buying a product or service.
Okay.
And the merchant actually defines what that transaction is.
Okay.
So therefore, what?
Oh, so I was going to say, so like common programs might be like Amazon's affiliate program where you use one of their links, and if somebody completes the transaction on their website, then you get a little kickback, a penny or something.
Exactly. Well, not a penny, but I mean, Amazon being the most popular and probably the first affiliate program out there, I mean, their commissions are anywhere from like 3 or 4% to maybe 8% the top end. It's really not that profitable. And unfortunately, though, it's most popular and most often started with, as far as affiliate marketing is concerned, you go down this path. But it's usually, believe it or not, I think it's the worst program to do.
Oh, so, interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it personally, but needless to say, that's one simple example. There's pretty much every company out there has an affiliate program one way, shape, or form or another. And if they don't, you can easily approach them and say, hey, look, you're doing that. We see you doing advertising over here. It's not so effective because, again, it's based on cost per click usually. Why don't you do a cost per action, CPA, where you only get paid if the transaction, whatever, again, you define to be successful, happens. So therefore, it's to your advantage to create an affiliate program. So, I mean, I, in fact, recommend any business, small or large, if you don't have an affiliate program, you should think of it at some level to have one.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So to now understanding what affiliate marketing is, let's go back to Investor Junkie. So, I mean, Investor Junkie, at least for me, based on what I'm seeing in sort of a work history and things like that, seems like a little bit of a departure. How did it occur to you to build a website, in theory, teaching people how to invest or showing people great unbiased investment information?
Yeah.
I guess what was the sort of the thought that led to a website like that, being that you were coming from technology and hosting and all this other stuff? Why investing? And then second of all, how did the affiliate marketing work in there?
Well, I always had an active interest in investing. So again, this is after the financial crisis of 2008. And I'm like, I wasn't hurting financially by no means. both in terms of with hosting, you pretty much get paid every month, and it's great. It's a really needed service. So therefore, I was not affected as much as many other businesses in 2008, 2009. In the same notion too, I'm like getting frustrated with the clientele I was working with, getting bored a little bit too, and wanted to branch off into other things. Again, having some experience with affiliate marketing with my web hosting business. But so I thought of, initially I created the site as a kind of a skunk works to think, okay, I can showcase, at worst, I can showcase, here's a website that can scale. And here's using, the technologies behind the scenes to really scale this blog, be it WordPress and all the other things that needed to come with it. And here's, for my clientele, here's how to do it. So I wanted to kind of showcase it at worst case. But at best case, I thought about maybe I can monetize it through affiliate marketing. And the ironic thing is it turned into be much more profitable of a business than I ever expected.
So when you say that you start making money on affiliate marketing, obviously, I mean, we do this by driving traffic to the people who we are affiliates for, and we, basically get our little kickbacks or whatever. How do you, I guess, start driving traffic? Like, I mean, it seems easy enough to run out, throw up a web page today with, 12 Amazon links on it, or whatever. But I mean,
have them refresh every 10 seconds. And
yeah, but, but ultimately we need people to follow through and complete the action. And so, I mean, we've tried some affiliate marketing with this show, for example, and have had very little success, because ultimately it depends on somebody following through and doing the whole thing. Yep. So how do you, on a website like this, I mean, was it just that you determined investment information was valuable, people were seeking it out, therefore you had traffic, and that led to great affiliate return, or was there some other trick to it?
Well, I mean, first year and a half, this is a common question I get too. It's the first year and a half, I didn't do so well. And in fact, I was almost to the point of thinking of quitting. And because of one is the monetization wasn't there. The other was the audience. It was just taking a while to build an audience. I think for any, be it affiliate marketing or anything you're doing with a blog, it's not, create in 2 weeks or 2 months and you're instantly a success. It takes a really time to build up that traffic, especially if you're doing SEO. It just takes time. It takes time to become an expert and authority in that space and really get your voice, if you will. If you really understand your audience and you really talk to them on various services, and then also how to properly monetize it. To your point, what you're alluding to, most people that do affiliate marketing make very little money. I think most it's under 1,000, under 2,000 a month, or if not in some cases under 10,000 a year. Yeah. So it's usually not a successful business.
Well, and it seems like, I mean, obviously if you have a website that's getting decent traffic or something, then it would be kind of a no-brainer, right? I mean, this is almost free money. I'll put up your ad and then I get paid for people clicking on your ad.
Well,
but if you have no traffic, how do you develop that audience?
Well, keep in mind, unlike, traditional ad banners, which are CPC, cost per click, you get paid if they click on it, or there's also ones if they view the ad, you get paid as well. But with affiliate marketing, you only get paid if they
buy something.
They buy something. That action occurs. So it's a little different. If anything, what matters more in affiliate marketing is the quality of the traffic. It's not a matter of how much traffic. You can have, I use the example of Pinterest. Pinterest is a great platform for certain products and services, but for, say, investing, it was horrible. I may get, say, 50,000 visitors in a few months with Pinterest, but the audience was not appropriate for investing. So therefore, they would bounce off. They would not convert. It'd be horrible for affiliate marketing, where going back to ad banners, it'd be perfect for that type of medium. So you really have to understand with affiliate marketing that it's more the quality of the traffic, not the quantity, and getting the right person to the right service. And that's where our reviews and our comparison tools that we created helps facilitate that. In other words, I didn't want to just get a conversion and be done with it. I wanted to really make sure we sent the right person to the right service that was appropriate for them. And we discussed all the various, positives and negatives of that service, as opposed to just, I think a lot of people see through now with affiliate marketing that you're just hawking this product for the commission. And in the end, I think it hurts your brand, and you're doing it for a quick win, where in the long term, I've seen many people do that game and disappear in only a few years, if that.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, well, and I think that that's an important distinction you make, the difference between quality over quantity. I think we're at a point in society right now where everybody is sort of chasing the likes and things like that, and likes don't mean anything. And
I don't
so
know, man. I got 5 likes on my Instagram
I know.
today.
Well, and it feels great for the warm fuzzies, but
Yeah.
in terms of affiliate marketing or driving traffic someplace, those 4 or 5 likes they don't amount to much,
Yeah.
or 10,000 likes maybe doesn't even amount to much. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Well, it's akin
interesting
to
what
what
the
I saw
metric
in
is.
it's akin to what I saw in the '90s. The whole just get eyeballs to the web page.
Right.
That really what counted. And nowadays it's the same thing with likes or shares. It doesn't help if it doesn't help convert that product, be it your own product or service or something through affiliate marketing. What matters is the conversion, and I think people lose sight of that.
So what's like a good, standard practice for getting people to convert and then setting up, I assume, like a click funnel and trying to get them in the right area and get them going? What's like best practices for you in your business in the investment world? And did you do anything different from like the Rand Fishkins and the guys in the SEO world that kind of set it all up?
Well, I mean, the one thing that I found interesting that I learned during this process. So again, from 2009 to last year, I really learned. I knew about SEO before that, but I really got into the weeds, if you will, on how SEO worked, and then how it's related to not only affiliate marketing, but overall how it really is tied into a sales funnel. It's instead of through paid traffic, through paid ad that you do, SEO is really the same thing except it's free. And I think most people lose sight of that fact, where certain keywords are much more transactional than others. So you really have to think about, I use the example, what is a mortgage is less transactional than what's the best mortgage rate. And Google also really looks at those cues depending on your content. If you really are pushing hard for, say, affiliate commission or what is a mortgage, you're not going to rank really well for that keyword, because of Google's knowing, hey, this keyword is not really that transactional. We're seeing a lot of transactional information on this page, or links that go to the various merchants you're working with. We don't want to see that. We want to have more value add. We want to make sure the reader gets information out of reading this article, as opposed to converting for what's the best mortgage rate. So that's one of the things you have to think about with SEO is there's a pendulum, if you will, of how much transactional a page can be. You really need to be appropriate for that and look at what's out there currently. If you're trying to rank for best mortgage rate, you should look what the competition's doing and ultimately try to, at minimum, mimic it, but make it better and improve on what the add value that they're maybe currently not doing.
So I write an article on my WordPress page. I've got Yoast SEO. I've got a few other plugins that are designed to help with SEO. What are like the main elements that are driving Google to, when they crawl your site, reference you? Is it like the hashtags? Is it the content that you write? Is it the keywords? I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can put in on like the sidebar that supposedly help, but I honestly don't know what I'm doing when it comes to that world. So I don't know what to focus on or what content's actually delivering the results.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think nowadays, the funny thing is, I think 20 years ago, 10 years ago, even, it was about gaming Google. You could develop techniques like, okay, put this information in your keywords, and therefore you rank high for this page. And honestly, Google is much smarter than that nowadays, not only in terms of backlinks, but also the content. It really looks at the content and mimics more what a user is doing, and looks at what the users are doing on your site, and therefore says, okay, these people think this content's crap. We're not going to rank it. At one point, we did rank it high for this keyword or the keywords. We're no longer going to rank it high because if the bounce rate is just way too high, the time on page.
Can you define the bounce rate? What do you mean by that?
Bounce rate means where they click on the link and they immediately bounce back to Google search. Google looks at that as one metric to say, this content is really not relevant or not related to what this keyword is currently ranking for. Over time, it will start decreasing that page in the ranks because it just knows it's not relevant, and start bubbling up other content it thinks is relevant based on the time on page, the bounce rate, other things, other metrics, going to that article. So it really tries to mimic what a person's doing on a page, and or gets feedback from the users on your page to figure out how this thing should rank. So it's much more about creating good content as opposed to thinking, okay, I got to game Google to put these keywords in the H1 tag or the title tag or something like that, where again, those techniques no longer work and really haven't worked for many years.
So
You
what
really
you're
have to
saying
think-
is we can't go and leave like paragraphs of text that are the same color as our background at the bottom of our
Hey,
web pages
stop
anymore?
giving me crap for that. That was 10 years ago.
that used to work though.
I'm just saying, I used to do it too. Yeah, I mean that was a trick.
And it's funny that I mean it's a good, in my eyes, it's all net positive for my eyes. One is it's harder to game. I mean, there's still cases where people game the system, but overall it allows people to create good content. It's really focusing on a better user experience for Google and for the users themselves. That's not to say there's not issues with Google and Google sometimes gets it wrong, or other issues with Google and the content itself. But ultimately, I think in the past 10 years, I've seen Google get much better in this process. And I think it's net positive for everyone in this industry.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, so I guess, Mike was asking some questions about SEO. Maybe we can dig in on that just a little bit more. What do you think are like, I mean, now that we know that we can't game the system anymore, like what I guess makes better content? And maybe this goes back to that idea of building audience and things like that. So maybe we can make this one big conversation. But like, if we're out there and we're producing content every day, and I mean, because Google's not reporting to us and saying, "Hey, man, sorry, we don't like your article. Sorry, we don't have the same beliefs."
They are though. I disagree with that statement because of in the way they are giving you feedback based on your ranking. If
You just have to look for it though. Is
exactly.
Yeah.
You can use tools like Ahrefs. Ahrefs is a really cool tool. It's not free by any means, but it's a great tool to show over time. Are you getting better? It's really demystifying that black box that Google has, and look over time. Are you getting better or are you getting worse? Is the content you're creating, helping increase your rankings, or is it making it worse? You look at, overall the stats in Google Analytics as well can leave clues. Meaning, is the bounce rate for those readers going down? Are the time on page going up? Are the people visiting more pages on your site? Things like that. Those are cues that Google says this page, this site is more important. Therefore, we should rank it higher in these said keywords.
So is Google the end all be all, or is Facebook Pixel worth dealing with? I've done a little bit of reading on Pixel, but I've never actually implemented anything with it. And is that more for like a online, like a clicking and setting up a sales funnel from Facebook to lead? Isn't that the only reason you would use it?
Yeah, I mean, Facebook's Pixel is really for paid traffic. And not to say you shouldn't have it installed. By all means, in fact, you should have it. I mean, what I've recommended and discussed on a recent blog post on LarryLudwig.com is the whole idea of SEO becoming, right now, SEO is anywhere from 50 to 80% of traffic for all people out there. And it's, if anything, it's been decreasing over the past 10 years. So I use the example of, for rank number one, 2014, you would get 38% of all traffic. Nowadays, it's about 31% for the same ranking number one position for that same keyword. It's because of Google's pushing down with more ads, more featured snippets, they're called. In other words, getting the information. Exactly. Getting more information at the very top to answer that question before you even click into your website. So therefore, the click-through rate to your website is decreased, significantly in the past, 8-10 years almost. So therefore, I think that trend's only going to continue. Google wants to make sure it answers all the information as much as possible before going to someone else's website, which makes sense. So therefore, you got to look at paid traffic, and where Facebook Pixel or Google's Pixel, for that matter, matters is making sure you can then properly, use other means to get your audience to your website, be it now through paid traffic as opposed to just search.
Speaking of search, I mean, and maybe just to back up Mike's question, are there any other relevant search engines? I mean, like, we talk about Google, everybody talks about Google, but I mean, does it platforms, or like, is the work we're doing for Google, going to optimize us for these other sites as well?
I mean, Bing is, I think, a underserved or a platform most people ignore, both in terms of organic traffic and paid traffic. Again, it depends on your audience. I had on Investor Junkie, I had an audience that was much older demographic, so therefore it worked very well with Bing because they left it as their default search engine. They didn't know better.
Nice.
So, and paid traffic worked really well. So people often ignored Bing's search traffic, or paid traffic, I should say, where it works exactly the same as Google Ads. So by all means, if you're successful in Google Ads, you should at least take a look at Bing's ads as well. That you have, obviously, Amazon is a very popular search engine, believe it or not. I think it's ranked number 3 in popularity of search.
As an engine, as just a search engine. I never even thought to try that.
without question, you should definitely, if you can get a book or some means to sell product or service on Amazon. Some people use it as a loss leader. They just put their products on Amazon, not to hope of make a profit, but at least get their brand out there.
So,
That's what.
I'm sorry to sidetrack. This is just a personal question, and it probably has nothing to do with anything we're talking about. But my uncle has a Radio Shack in Idaho, and it's kind of a smaller market, and it's not really taken off. But he also has like third-party products that he sells through his Radio Shack, and I've tried to talk to him about setting up an online store through Amazon and be able to sell some of his product and do a shipment kind of thing, but I've never gone down that road. It's selling a physical product on Amazon and creating up a merchant account and a service. Have you ever done that? Have you ever been down that road with a client? Are there any tips and tricks that you could maybe recommend for something like that?
I mean, the problem is with anything like Amazon, just like for organic traffic, is you don't own the platform. So same thing with Facebook. You're relying on a third party to bring revenue in. So it's a risk. So I would think of it as one channel. That's the first and foremost. You shouldn't be your only channel. So in your case of with the business, is making sure you just have it as one channel and have a website as well. So you really should diversify. With that said, I have not personally done Amazon just because I don't deal with mostly physical products.
Sure.
But I have friends that do very well on it because it's just one channel, but it's not their only channel.
So would you recommend someone like him setting up his personal website as a sales platform on there, and then having Amazon as another? How would you manage inventory?
Well, like one example is like with Shopify, and I'm sure there are others that do this, but I just happen to know the Shopify platform. You can load your products, services, whatever into Shopify, and you can push them directly into Amazon via their APIs and things. So for example, if your personal website was built on a Shopify platform, or among others, that inventory control, all those things that you build in that are built into Shopify would be sort of carried through to whichever vendors you push out to, Amazon being one, but there are other channels you can push to as well. So.
Okay. Sorry to sidetrack us.
No, that's a question though. But my point is, going back to the original question, is there's definitely ways to, Google shouldn't be the only be all, and there's other channels. You should definitely have email. You should definitely use social media. You should definitely have other channels besides just Google. Not only because if you're relying on just one channel, you're putting all your eggs in one basket. Should Google decide to update their algorithm like they're doing this current month in January, it could be a huge upset for your blog, or your website. You can literally lose 20, 30, 40, 50% of your traffic overnight. I've seen that happen.
That's crazy.
Well, so maybe then let's talk a little bit about that. One of the things you just mentioned was email marketing. And I had some interest in asking you about, again, sort of just this idea of audience development. Like I happen to notice at LarryLudwig.com, you can download a free sheet that gives you some information. I think it's an SEO document or something like that. I just
marketing.
Looked at it. Affiliate marketing. That's right. And so, so this is one method for collecting email addresses and building your own platform, to your point about the, not having all your eggs in somebody else's basket, that you've got this third party relationship with an Amazon or a Google who can do whatever they want with you. Yep. By developing your own email list, you sort of own that list. You're able to manage your own audience and manage your own people and be in touch with your own people. And so you're not beholden to these, third party overlords. So
yes and no, though. I find interesting.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit.
I mean, the interesting thing is you hear other internet marketers go, okay, I own the money is in the list and you should have a mailing list. And I totally agree with that, but you're still beholden to getting the email delivered. So you may actually have an email address, but if your email goes into a spam folder, you're kind of screwed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's or even worse, the other worst issue is actually Google tabs. You have the other tabs now, the promotions tab, for example. I've seen the studies, it decreases your open rate by 10%. So and Google is being the biggest email provider. So you're still beholden to Google at some level, even if you use email. So it's not necessarily a free lunch, if you will, but you do have, contacts that you can then use to say remarket through Facebook. In other words, you export that email list to Facebook and use as a list to create a lookalike audience or do some of the advanced techniques where remarketing to them and making sure they.
Can't you niche down in Facebook in those kind of things and actually get direct demographics of exactly what you're looking for based off of the people on your mailing list?
Most definitely. I mean, they've made it a little bit more obscure in the past few years because of the issues they've had with privacy. But yes, you can segment your audiences by uploading your, say, customer base in Facebook. And then what will happen is to say, okay, based on these current customers you have, let's create a lookalike audience. And from that, let's market the same way. And you can have pretty good success with it. In other words, Google uses it all through computer model to determine which audience will more likely to be buying your same product. It's pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah, no, I actually have some experience with taking and building sort of the lookalike audience and things, and it really is pretty incredible. I mean, we generated a list of survey respondents for a product I was trying to launch, and did that thing, loaded it right up into Facebook, and yeah, I mean, basically everyone's on Facebook, so they have those email addresses, they know who those people are, and they can look at their behaviors and make determinations on how to build an audience that has similar behavior. So
Yep.
it's very interesting, and it's kind of a crazy thing that you can do that, but it is amazing.
I mean, in the end, though, you should look at any of the platforms as you're renting that platform, be it SEO, be it Facebook groups. You're renting that platform, and you should think of it as that way. You really want to get them onto your web. The ultimate goal is you should be getting into a mailing list, a membership site, some area that you have more control over, because you lack that control through Facebook groups, for example.
Yeah, no, I think that makes perfect sense. And I like that analogy or that idea of renting the platforms. I think a lot of times I don't know, we get kind of in this loop where it feels like we're in control, like it feels like as we're buying ads and doing whatever on Facebook, like, oh yeah, no, this is my thing. I can cruise through here. I can use this platform, and you don't think about the times when, Google pulls the rug out from under you and changes the algorithm or whatever.
Yeah, I've seen that happen. Unfortunately, I've had a few friends, and I was even affected to a degree at one point with my business with Investor Junkie. I had basically what's called a negative SEO attack, and it affected my ranking over time, where I lost 30% of the traffic, and from that, 30% of the revenue.
Is that just a competitor trying to mess with your numbers and make you look bad, or I mean, why would that happen?
Yeah, exactly. You had a competitor. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to prove that you have negative SEO, but for the most part, it pretty much was guaranteed based on various factors. So from that, in the end, I eventually recovered, but it took work. And from that, I also gained a lot of knowledge of how SEO even worked during that period. So I really helped better focus. I mean, again, it was somewhat of a upsetting issue, but in the end, I really came out of it, and learned so much from the business. Not only, like I've said, not rely on just one source of traffic, but also understanding how SEO really worked, because of it really hones the website even more so than before and improved the whole user experience in that process.
So Ryan and I have done kind of a brief overview of SEO. I've read Rand Fishkin's book and a few other things, but I haven't really started implementing it in my own site until recently. And so I'm still in kind of the baby phases of SEO, and it's starting to come along. Can you maybe go over a broad overview of like best practices for SEO and like starting with a fresh post? What would you do to get the best performance out of a post?
That's a great question. I think the first and foremost is know or understand who you're writing this for. So, the one thing I discuss, and I've actually just have it in a course of mine, is I talk about how is really, you can write a post really for three major reasons. One is for SEO, another one is for social media, and another one is really for your existing audience, be it mailing list, what have you. And it's really hard to create a blog post or an article that really satisfies all three audiences. Rand, I think, in fact, discusses in one of his blog posts that you really can really make a post that satisfies all three. I kind of disagree. I think you really need to focus on one primary, and maybe if you're lucky, you get the other two with it. But for the most part, you need to really focus on one of those three core audiences, and then write your post for that purpose. And also, if you're doing it for SEO, really understanding as far as intent is concerned, again, where they are in their sales funnel. If they are just starting off with, again, using the example I just mentioned, what is a mortgage? You really should be educating people, then saying, here's the rates you should get, here's what you should buy. They're really exploring a mortgage than wanting to purchase a mortgage for buying a house. And again, with that, there's other supplemental things to think about as well that can go with that same article. You can have links to either outside your website or even within your own website, create future articles or existing articles and link to them. So you really should think of it in a more organic and much more holistic way than just purely, I'm ready to post to, write this one post and it just lives in an island and nothing else is around it. You really need to make sure you have other articles to help supplement it as well.
Interesting. I've heard that link backs are really important. People linking to your site. How much does that affect your placement? And is it like if I, for example, link back to our podcast site from my DJ site, and Ryan links back from his R2 Media, does that actually affect it, or is it you need like a lot of link backs for it to actually make a difference?
Well, I would say years ago, any link would count the same. Nowadays, it's all about relevancy, meaning if let's use my investor website as an example. If I had an automotive site linked to Investor Junkie,
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Google would look at that, go, it's not really relevant. What really matters is another investment blog or another, like a Forbes, links to my website. That's highly more related and has what's called link velocity than compared to an automotive site or a baby website. It really has no relation to investing unless it maybe talked about 529s as an example. But outside of that, you have to really think of it. What matters is you want to get other websites, other blogs that are related to your business, not outside of your realm. And again, there were years ago where that was not the case. People would literally buy backlinks from anywhere. It didn't matter. And Google got wise to that and really updated their algorithms where they look at that. What's the relevancy of this other blog? It kind of Google pigeonholes you into various niches, and you got to make sure not only do you cover those said topics on your website, but other websites that are linking to you are also related as well.
And can it be a negative effect if you have just a bunch of link backs that don't mean anything? They actually look at it like almost a bot did all that, so we're going to drop you off.
That's where negative SEO can be a factor. Yeah, I mean, if people have somewhat wised up to that and did the exact opposite, linking to say porn websites to a blog. You laugh. That's the one way I've seen people do negative SEO is they link to bad website, bad players, if you will. And Google's kind of downplayed that as well in recent years. But again, that was a factor as well. Is Google didn't think of that. They thought of only the positive, not the negative consequences of these updates. And they eventually figure it out or see the negative issues. But in the end, what matters is the link. But there are cases where you can rank. If your overall blog or website is considered quality in the eyes of Google, you can actually rank for a somewhat competitive to low competitive keyword instantly without any backlinks. So it's about the quality of the content itself. So I actually had cases where we would rank for content because we were known as a well-known resource for investing on said topics without any backlinks at all. And it's just how you build up your brand. You're ultimately building up a brand where Google looks at you and your readers, for that matter, as a quality resource on that said topic.
Interesting.
Okay. So just as we're starting to get here to the end of the show, so recently as this last year, you sold the Investor Junkie website. You are now starting to transition into more of a, I don't know, now you're, I guess, maybe more able to start pursuing some passions and doing the things that are important to you.
Exactly.
Can you talk a little bit about sort of where you're headed, what the sort of future trajectory looks like and what you're doing now?
So I sold it last year, Investor Junkie. I sold it for 7 figures. And from that, I don't have to, if I wanted to, I could literally not work again if I didn't want to. But it's like any entrepreneur, you always have the gears working. You always want to do something else. And I from my end, I think there are a lot of opportunities still, not only in affiliate marketing, to really help other businesses, both on the merchant side, but also on the blogger side or the publisher side, but also just in general, digital marketing. I think there's, based on my background for many years, I think a lot of businesses just don't do it right. I think they need a lot of help in this area. And that's where, I created my own personal brand. So instead of creating Investor Junkie, I created it as a brand into itself that could easily be sold. I, really branding myself now as the expert, as opposed to Investor Junkie being the expert. And now, building out not only courses, but also doing consulting as well.
So before we totally jump off of Investor Junkie, I kind of want to get a breakdown of your daily habits with that business. Like what would you do? Would you publish weekly? Would you publish daily? Would you take snippets of your content and reformat it? Like what was your average week like at Investor Jockey as the owner, and how many people did you have on your team? Was it just you? Was it a whole publishing crew that kind of helped you do it?
Those are good questions. So I started off obviously just by myself, and I mean I had a tech person help me with the WordPress hosting and whatnot with my other business. But after a while, after about 2-3 years, I hired an editor. I also had other people write for the blog. All those were consultants. So I never had full-time employees for writing, but I had a full-time editor. I had someone else to really help with the relationships with the affiliate marketing side, and myself. So it was really 3 people full-time, and the rest were consultants. And I hired eventually an SEO firm to just help, just to really work on the SEO for me. Meaning I just didn't have the time to dedicate to it, and I knew how important it was, and just really hired them to help not only help me with backlinks creation, but also just look through the site from a second pair of eyes to see what issues maybe I was doing wrong or can be improved upon. But I had a really skeleton crew. I didn't really have a huge staff. It didn't really need it. I think ultimately, I'm all about keeping a business lean. Not only because of with affiliate marketing, the 2 major downfalls with affiliate marketing is you're relying mostly on SEO, unfortunately, and the other is you're relying on other people's products and services, where those products and services could be shut off. I can say at a moment's notice, but very quickly. So 1 month you can have an affiliate program, and next month you could have no affiliate program with that merchant, and you're high and dry as far as a source of revenue. It could be a significant source of revenue too. I mean, we had, I forget how many vendors we worked with, but I think we at peak, I want to say 50 or 60 different sources of revenue. So it was very diversified, but still some, the 80-20 rule, a good portion of them generated a significant amount of revenue. So, I mean, in the end, the Investor Junkie was just I would work on, going back to the other question you asked, I would work on mostly updating content. We came to a point where we had enough content, you're just kind of repeating yourself. And with SEO, it's about improving the existing content. So we spent most of the time, both the editor and I, going through existing articles and seeing where they can be improved, and either having ourselves do it or hiring a writer to improve that content. So it was always about improving the content. We were ultimately trying to make sure if someone came to a review or an article on our site, it was updated as of that date. So if a merchant created a new service, we wanted to make sure people came to that review and read it and said, "Oh, this is updated as of today." We were really concerned with having outdated content on the site. So therefore, it spent a lot of time on that aspect.
Does the outdated content actually play a fairly large factor in the SEO results? Will Google analyze the post date and play a part in the results?
It's what's called the freshness. Yeah, there's definitely a freshness factor. In certain industries, it makes more sense than others. And in the case with investing, with the various services that are out there, they're constantly updating or constantly creating new products and features. So therefore, it mattered probably more in that space. But in general, yes, you want to make sure you have the most updated content.
Okay. So your latest post was on 9 books you should read that are recommended. And I've read a few of them on there, E-Myth and Rich Dad Poor Dad and a few other ones. Are there any books that doesn't even have to be in the SEO world or pertinent to this conversation? Is there a book on that list that like has personal value to you and that you would recommend over the others and that stands out?
I would have to say, yeah, that's a good question. I'm looking at it myself. I would have to say Millionaire Fastlane by MJ DeMarco. I think his book is definitely helpful for fellow entrepreneurs on the digital marketing space, where he gives you at least tips. The Rich Dad Poor Dad, I do recommend that as well, but it's much more
real estate centric. Yeah.
That too. It's also real estate. It's not online. Where MJ DeMarco's book is really online and tells you really there's some businesses are better than others. And I unfortunately learned the hard way. Not all businesses are created equal. My web hosting business was definitely a difficult business to be in, where affiliate marketing, I did much better at it.
Interesting. Yeah.
Well, cool. All right. Well, so Larry, just kind of wrap this thing up. Where can people learn more about the services you're doing these days, your online courses, your consulting practice, and all that good stuff?
Ironically, you go to LarryLudwig.com.
Perfect.
All right. Easy peasy. And that's just like it sounds, Larry, LUDWIG.com. And yeah, that's it. So cool. So thanks to everybody who tuned in and listened to the live stream, and everybody who will listen to this show. Shoot us notes, comments, emails, whatever you've got. And if you've got questions for Larry, we're happy to pass things on. Otherwise, reach him directly at his site, LarryLudwig.com. And yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Larry. Appreciate your time.
Yeah,
you.
much appreciated.